In the last video, we talked about 5 of the most important pieces at the Met. Whether you discovered the museum in person or online, you are sure to be inspired by the Met's encyclopedic collection of 2 million works of art from history. The only challenge here is absorbing the art that is all around you. In this video, we're diving back in, with 5 more pieces to see on your visit. This sculpture is the only one Degas ever exhibited. It has captivated generations and has received both praise and criticism on how realistic it is. It is of a young student who at the time was attending the Paris Opera Ballet School. Marie Van Gogh, who was the daughter of a single mom who worked as a laundress. Degas was fascinated by ballerinas and is in fact best known for his depictions of them painted during his frequent visits to the Paris Opera. His preliminary sketches of Marie indicate his intense concentration on her form and the intricacies of movement. She wears a bodice, a tutu, and a ribbon in her hair. Her hands are clasped together as she stretches her arms behind her back. Her legs and feet are placed in a resting ballet position. Her head is raised high and falls back slightly. Her posture is graceful, yet there is a tension in the pose. It's not an image of a ballerina at her most skilled, but one of repose. Considering the sophisticated grace of this model, it's easy to forget that she was only a child, 11 when Degas began this piece and 14 when it was completed. Today, ballerinas are regarded as talented artists who perform incredible feats while maintaining character and elegance. But the world of ballet has historically exploited women and girls, particularly in the 19th century. For many working girls like Marie, ballet was a chance to leave behind a life of poverty, but not through their artistic talents. The backroom of the Paris Opera Ballet was an elite brothel for art patrons, and the dancers often had to endure harassment or engage in sex work in order to climb up the social ladder. In Marie's somewhat contorted face, we can see hints of how she was feeling. The pain and stress of not only ballet training, but keeping her position on a young adolescent girl who lives her life through the choices of others and holds no agency. When Degas presented this piece at the 1881 Impressionist exhibition in Paris, the public was outraged. Due to how realistic it was, the fact that the original version was made from beeswax, an unconventional material in the time of marble, and the choice of the subject. An ordinary model who was neither a goddess nor royalty, but he did so because he wanted to portray a young girl who dreamed of having an illustrious life in ballet and who also kept her identity as a girl from the streets of Paris. After Degas' death in 1917, 28 bronze replicas were cast and appear in museums all over the world today. The most recognized version, however, was brought to the Met in 1929 and has been on display here for almost a century, captivating all who have the chance to see it in person. As you go through the museum, you'll probably see a crowd forming in the middle of this room, displaying works of post-impressionists. Vincent van Gogh's self-portrait with a straw hat is undoubtedly one of the most well-known paintings at the Met. Vincent was not unfamiliar to painting self-portraits, and in fact painted about 36 of them in his decade-long career. This painting was done during the 2 years he spent in Paris. Wanting to polish his abilities as an artist, he practiced day and night and became his best subject, saying, "I purposely bought a good enough mirror to work from myself for want of a model." Here, he demonstrates his remarkable talent in his choice of colors and brushwork to capture not only a scene, but also the emotions that exist in this particular moment. On the other side of the canvas is another piece, the potato peeler, done within 2 years previous to the self-portrait with a straw hat. Having both of these paintings on one canvas provides a context into Vincent's life at this point in his artistic career, a kind of backstory. When Van Gogh arrived in Paris in 1886, he discovered that the peasant studies he had dedicated his time to were outdated. The potato peeler is one of around 40 peasant portraits that Van Gogh painted during his time in Nuenen, Netherlands, during the winter of 1884 to 1885. The most famous piece of this series is the Potato Eaters. We can see the similarities here. It's almost as if she's the sixth member sitting in another corner of the room. Unlike the self-portrait with the straw hat, the potato peeler conveys a more somber scene. He uses a dark palette of grays, blues, and browns to echo the dreary living conditions of our subject. Van Gogh struggled with poverty all his life, and so it was not uncommon for him to reuse frames. Here, we can see Van Gogh's choice to abandon this motif for a livelier one that was similar to his French contemporaries. On this one canvas, beyond the art, what is also visible is his evolution as an artist. Though stylistically different, what remains the common thread of both pieces is Van Gogh's dedication to communicating the underlying feelings of both scenes and subjects. That is what sets him apart from other artists then and today. The depths that his works convey go beyond any surface-level depictions of a subject. This beautiful painting is by Mary Cassatt, an American artist known for her insightful depictions of the private scenes of a home. Cassatt's interest in this subject matter began when she started specializing in dry points and pastels in 1887. She wanted to bring out the psychological, sociological, and spiritual meaning from everyday routines and subjects. Here, we see a mother in a striped dress and a green apron, sewing as the child in white finds comfort in her lap, unbothered by what the mother is doing. Both of the subjects are seen from a central viewpoint, perhaps that of the child's, one that notices the joy in every day, no matter the simplicity. Contrary to what appears, the two subjects here are actually unrelated and took on the roles of mother and child for this painting as per Cassatt's request. However, even knowing that, it doesn't take away from the tenderness of the scene. The two subjects here seem to be enjoying the moment of earnest stillness between them. Behind the two figures, we can see the green of the grass and the faded brown of the trees in the yard through the window. The left one is open and lets in the sun into the room. Cassatt uses a palette of soft colors to depict all of the textures of the scene, of their clothes, the wood of the table, and the flowers in the vase. In her depictions of mothers, Cassatt made it a point to portray them as strong women, and not as individuals inferior to men, or as objects of desire, as was so common at the time. We can see that here. The intimacy that is felt in this scene feels safe, protected, a familiar feeling that lies in us all when in the presence of the ones that care for us. Between 1897 to 1926, Claude Monet painted approximately 250 pieces depicting the water lilies on his residence. The most famous ones of which can be seen, or better yet experienced, surrounding visitors at Musée de l'Orangerie. But before those pieces were created, Monet started with this, Bridge over a Pond of Water Lilies. In 1893, he purchased some land with a pond near his property in Giverny, wanting to build a space for the pleasures of the eye and also for motifs to paint. In this piece, we can see Monet's two greatest accomplishments, his garden and the series of paintings they inspired. This piece is one of a series of 18 paintings of the same scene, different only due to the ever-shifting atmospheric conditions, and it clearly displays Monet's mastery on the Impressionist style. It consists of trees in the background, one of which is a weeping willow, a Japanese bridge, and the pond filled with water lilies. The wooden bridge extends across the canvas. It seems unanchored above the water, as if it is floating. Its shadow falls onto the water in the shape of a dark arch. The choice to portray this scene vertically is uncommon in this series of paintings, but Monet did so to give the water lilies and their reflections the space they deserve. The scene is brimming with elements our eyes are drawn to, yet there is a calm. This was done through the use of a limited color palette. Monet uses hues of greens and browns that are seen in nature as opposed to more intense shades. As well, the vertical brushstrokes of the trees and the reflections are balanced with the horizontal clusters of lily pads. In this painting, Monet showcases his genius in capturing on canvas the very act of perceiving nature. A task accomplished by so few others, and we are lucky enough to see the works his home has inspired all over the world today. This 7-ton granite Sphinx sculpture depicts Hatshepsut, a female king that came into power in 1473 BC. She was one of only a few female pharaohs in the 1,000 years plus history of ancient Egypt. Throughout the years, she has been depicted as a female ruler, a masculine king, and like here, as a sphinx, a mythical creature who was a symbol of power and protection in ancient Egypt. All of her depictions have inscriptions that include her name with the feminine pronoun or verb form. And so the masculine bodies and clothes were not intended to deceive people into thinking that she was a man, but rather to offer freedom to the artist creating them. Her reign lasted 2 peaceful decades, in which she restored destroyed monuments and renewed trade initiatives. She ushered in an era of economic growth, which is reflected in the art of this time. Characterized by remarkable innovations in decorative arts and sculptures, and architectural marvels like her mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, in which this piece was discovered. She has the body of a lioness, whose strong muscles contrast the classic-looking elegance of her face. She wears a Nemes headdress, which was a symbol of royalty and only worn by pharaohs, and has a false beard, which signified a pharaoh's status as a living god. The Egyptians believed that the spirit could live after death, but only if there remained an image of them in the land of the living. But for reasons unknown, 20 years after her passing, her nephew had all depictions of her destroyed and dumped in quarries in an effort to erase her name and image from history. Despite this intentional destruction of her name and accomplishments, the memory of this powerful female ruler has persisted for more than 1,000 years, and by visiting this statue, we can educate ourselves and fulfill her hopes and beliefs. The Metropolitan Museum of Art is among the best and most renowned museums in the world. With 5,000 years of history in one place, it has one of the most comprehensive collections of art from ancient times to the present day. So take it easy and have fun, forge your own connections, and allow yourself to take in the history that is all around you. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for liking and subscribing if you already have.